Welcome to All Theory, No Conspiracy. Don't forget to like, subscribe, click to receive notifications, and leave a comment. This video is about the discoveries made by retired psychotherapist Dr. Jerry Marzinsky regarding the voices heard in the minds of diagnosed schizophrenics. After 35 years of treating patients in hospital settings and in prisons, he has concluded that these voices are not auditory hallucinations, but an energetic attachment formed by conscious, negative entities. Are people who hear voices suffering from a mental illness? Or are they hearing the voices of conscious, living entities with negative intent? I am not an accredited psychotherapist, but Dr. Jerry Marzinsky is. For articles, videos, or any guidance about alternative treatments for schizophrenia and techniques for dealing with these voices, please visit www.jerrymarzinsky.com. I want to begin by dispelling the established canard that mental illnesses, like depression, are the result of a chemical imbalance in the brain of the patient. From the University College London Psychiatric Department. For 3 decades, people have been deluged with information suggesting that depression is caused by a chemical imbalance in the brain, namely an imbalance of a brain chemical called serotonin. However, our latest research review shows that the evidence does not support it. Furthermore, there is no specific test that can determine if a chemical imbalance is present, and studies show that people with mental illness demonstrate the same serotonin levels as people without. It seems that the only people who benefit from the belief are the manufacturers of the pharmaceuticals that permeate the marketplace. One of the factors that changed how Dr. Jerry Marzinsky treated his schizophrenic patients was when a church group would meet at the hospital he worked at. He noticed that many of the schizophrenic patients would not attend the church group meetings, which included activities like reading scripture, taking walks in nature, and enjoying cake and ice cream at the conclusion. Marzinsky began asking the patients why they preferred the dingy ward they were on to getting out for a while, and at the very least enjoying cake and ice cream. The most common responses were, "I don't believe in God, He's never helped me," and "I just don't like it there." Some patients who had tried to attend services said that they experienced anxiety even thinking about attending. After months of questioning, many of the patients told Dr. Marzinsky that the voices in their heads grew significantly louder and more agitated even at the mere thought of going to church. Some patients said that when they entered the church, the voices became so intense that they had to get up and leave. Others who tried to stay said the voices were so loud they couldn't make out what the preacher was saying. Similar reports were coming from patients who had never met or spoken to one another. Many of the patients offered that the voices consistently repeated 2 primary things. Church is a bunch of crap. There is no God. And what makes you think Jesus is going to save you? He couldn't even save himself. Although psychiatry takes the stance that the voices patients hear are nonsensical, meaningless hallucinations, what Dr. Marzinsky was experiencing was very different. True hallucinations are random. Whatever the voices were, they were far from random. They were consistent in content and always negative. High numbers of patients who had never met or spoken to one another were reporting the same patterns. The voices told them that nobody loved them or cared about them, and that anyone who told them that they did was lying to them. The voices would also tell them they were worthless, a failure, and a massive burden to everyone. Experiencing a horrible reality that they were reluctant to discuss with others, schizophrenics would isolate themselves from any source of potential help as the voices grew in intensity, telling them that their families and friends would be much better off if they would just end their lives. It is no secret that the self-inflicted death rate of schizophrenics is many times higher than the normal population. Although antipsychotic medications can have damaging long-term effects, they are an effective treatment in dealing with the voices as they keep the patient calm and relaxed, which lessens the effect that the voices have on them. But patients would tend to go off their medications when they most needed them. Dr. Marzinsky asked these patients why they stopped medicating. After questioning many patients, it became clear that the voices would try to get the patient to quit their calming antipsychotic medications. After that, the patients would again become susceptible to the negative speech and subsequent attacks, which always left the patient feeling mentally and physically exhausted. Dr. Marzinsky ascertains that these voices strive to evoke a constant flow of negative energy. The energy is then siphoned from the host person during an attack, and this is why people feel completely drained of energy afterward. The negative energy evoked in their victims is a form of sustenance for these entities, and it keeps them alive. Through these experiences of treating these patients and in some cases curing them of schizophrenia, Dr. Marzinsky has developed techniques for patients to follow to help battle these voices and ultimately defeat them. One technique is meditation. One of the most important things for patients to realize is that these voices are separate from the patient, not a part of them. And a technique that Marzinsky's associate and co-author Sherry Swiney developed is to teach patients to recognize and understand that what the voices say is a lie. Another method is to recite Psalm 23, the Lord's Prayer, and to sing or listen to the song Amazing Grace. Marzinsky discovered the effect these words had on the voices when researching why his schizophrenic patients avoided the church meetings. Dr. Wilson Van Dusen was a psychologist with a PhD in clinical psychology and had spent years working with schizophrenic patients. He believed that when the voices left the patient, so did the schizophrenia. Dr. Van Dusen was working on a project with Dr. Marzinsky at the time of his death in 2005. There will be a link to his work entitled The Presence of Spirits in Madness in the description of this video. A link to jerrymarzinsky.com, a link to a YouTube video of an interview with Dr. Marzinsky, links to articles about depression not being a chemical imbalance, and a link to the PDF of Dr. Wilson Van Dusen's The Presence of Spirits in Madness will be in the description below this video. The end? Stay tuned for more content from All Theory, No Conspiracy. Thank you for watching.